Minari, a movie written and directed by the upcoming Lee Isaac Chung, not only talks about a migrated Korean family struggling to make their life in America, but also questions the idea of what makes a house a home. The family lacks in oneness. We realize and understand this by the very first scene that the couple are not sailing on the same ship. When they reach their new house, Monica is not very pleased with it. She expected a real house and not a cart on the wheel. She refuses help from Jacob when getting into the house as a metaphor of her not supporting Jacob in his new life of farming. Later that night, when Jacob proposes the idea of everyone sleeping together on the floor of the same room, his daughter refuses, complaining about his snoring. Few minutes into the film, we realize that the parents' actions are for the good of their family, but they have completely different visions of what is good. Jacob has fear, the fear of feeling discarded in the family, same as the male chicks in the factory. This fear has led him to buy land and start Korean farming in America with the hope of a more independent and respectful life. On the other hand, Monica has different ideas for the family. She thinks the family should stay in the cities where everything is easily available and also very near to the hospital for her son, David, who has a hole in his heart. These small fights leap as one day when Jacob says they have to escape the place as the tornado will rip their house off. Everyone starts to panic until they realize it was just a warning. Realizing the vulnerability of their life, Monica breaks out, and then what comes is the biggest fight in the film. Sonja, the grandmother, is the savior of this family, and we know it even before she arrives, as the couple are seen first time very happy together on screen only by the news of her homecoming. As she enters the screen, the fights between the couples become less. The farm seems to be growing good, but things are not all in control as the small David doesn't like grandmother coming home, as he thinks the reason his parents fight is his grandmother, and thus the rest of the film moves most of the attention towards the relationship of David and the grandmother. Where the mother always treated him as someone fragile, the grandmother tells him that he is the strongest boy she had ever met in her life. While his mother did not allow David even to run, the grandmother instead encourages him to run, play, and pick up the heavy buckets of water. But most importantly, teaches him to fear nothing. Now, with this, everything seems to be going great for this family, but just then the downfall begins. Here again, due to the lack of communication, things start to fall apart. As Jacob, in order to save some money, secretly has switched the main water pipe towards the farm, others had to bring water from the banks of the river, including Grandma. This results in her getting a stroke and shifting to the hospital, which is away from their home. The family has again left apart from each other, metaphorically and literally. Jacob and Monica had to stay at the hospital, whereas David and Anne had to take care of themselves all alone and stay at their friend's place at night, ending at where they had started. The grandmother gets discharged, but she is not in the position of holding the family together like before. The family starts believing in things they didn't before, and again, Jacob and Monica start fighting. One day, the family had to go to the city for the checkup of little David's heart, and Jacob had to make a deal with a vegetable seller, thus leaving Grandma home alone. As they reach the hospital, Jacob and Monica gets a great news that David's heart is healing and there is no need for surgery, and Jacob on the other hand gets his first deal done which gives him and his family hope of a better future. But nothing comes in this family easily. Between these two great news, Monica and Jacob have had a very ruthless, ever awaiting confrontation. When everything seems to be over for this family, the savior returns yet again. While burning the garbage, the grandmother burns down the shed where vegetables had stacked, and from here we see the family arc getting completed. Jacob runs inside the shed, risking his own life to save the vegetables from burning down. Monica, who had been against the farm before, now decides to also jump into the fire and help Jacob. Jacob realizes that he has to prioritize his family first, which leads him to save his suffocating wife from the fire and leaving the vegetables to burn behind. On the other hand, David's arc is completed with him running after his grandmother, whom he didn't want in his house before. It is very important again to understand that even the actions of the grandmother were unintentional. Consequences of it turned out to be good for the family and thus successful to bring this family as a one, as a home again, which is proved by a beautiful shot of them sleeping on the floor, contrast to the beginning when they didn't agree to sleep together in the hall.
Sarakabar, Sabarakarai, Sarakap, whatever.